Jack was a 23-year-old man who worked the night shift at Morrison's gas station. Unlike his friends, who spent weekends partying, Jack worked extra hours to support himself through college. He was studying business with dreams of someday owning his own company. For now, he was content with his job, as it gave him the chance to connect with the regular customers who passed through. Jack had learned the value of kindness from his mom, who had raised him alone while working 2 jobs. There were months when she had to count pennies just to keep their old car running. She always told him, "Help others whenever you can. You never know when you might need help yourself." Those words stayed with Jack every day. The gas station, located by the highway, had been Jack's workplace for 3 years. He knew the regulars, the truck drivers who wanted their coffee just right, the nurses rushing to their shifts, and the factory workers starting their early morning shifts. Jack kept a notebook of their stories, just like his mom did when she worked at the diner. He'd helped people in many ways over the years, whether it was covering the cost of Mr. Peterson's gas when his card was declined, or jumping Mrs. Thompson's car on a rainy 2 a.m. shift. Jack never made a big deal about these acts of kindness. It was just who he was. Everything changed when Morrison's was bought by a large corporation last month. The new manager, Mr. Phillips, was obsessed with profits. He installed security cameras everywhere and enforced strict rules against giving discounts or helping anyone, no matter their circumstances. "This is a business, not a charity," he'd constantly remind the staff. One chilly October night, a beat-up Honda pulled into the station. The woman driving looked exhausted, though well-dressed. She had a baby sleeping in the back seat. She stepped inside and nervously explained, "I need to get home to Brighton, but I only have $15. How far will that get me?" Jack looked at the gas prices. $15 wouldn't even get her halfway. He asked her how much she needed, and she said $25. She explained she had just started a new job, and her first paycheck wouldn't come until next week. Jack recognized that familiar look his mom used to have when figuring out how to make it to payday. Without hesitation, he offered to cover the $10 difference. "Don't worry about it," he said. "Just pay it forward when you can." Just as Jack finished helping her, Mr. Phillips stormed out of his office, furious. "What did you just do?" he yelled. "Did you let someone underpay for gas?" Jack tried to explain that the woman had a baby in the car and needed help. Mr. Phillips didn't care. "This isn't a charity," he shouted. "You're fired! Clean out your locker and get out!" 3 years of hard work, holidays, and extra shifts, all gone because he helped someone in need. Jack quietly took off his name tag, but instead of arguing, he simply said, "I'd do it again." Sometimes, being human matters more than company policy. As Jack walked home that cold night, he wondered how he'd pay for his college books, but he kept thinking of that baby sleeping in the back seat and knew, deep down, he had made the right choice. An hour later, Jack heard a car pull up outside his apartment. He looked out the window to see a Rolls-Royce Phantom, a car he'd only ever seen in movies. A tall man in a suit stepped out, followed by the woman from the gas station, now dressed in business attire. The man knocked on Jack's door. "Mr. Jacob Mitchell?" the man asked. "I'm Robert Harrison, and I believe you met my daughter, Emily, earlier tonight." Jack was stunned. Robert Harrison was one of the wealthiest men in the state. His company owned half of downtown. Robert explained, "Emily is an executive who spent the last 15 years focused only on business. Recently, I made her take a 6-month leave from the company. No access to her accounts. She had to live on minimum wage and drive that old car. I wanted her to remember what life was like for everyday people before she could be trusted to run the family business." Jack sat there, trying to comprehend the situation. Mr. Harrison continued, "The manager, Mr. Phillips, was right about one thing. Morrison's isn't a charity. That's why I bought it tonight. All 28 stations across the state." Jack nearly dropped his coffee. "You what?" he asked. "Mr. Phillips has been fired, and I'd like to offer you your job back. Not as a night shift worker, but as the manager of the station. You'll get a proper salary and benefits. Show me how to run a business that makes a profit, while still caring for people." Emily added, "It wasn't just the $10 you helped with. It was the fact that you helped without knowing who I was, without expecting anything in return. That's the kind of person we need running our businesses." Within a month, Jack had doubled the station's profits, while also launching a Pay It Forward program to help genuine families in need. Customers could leave extra money for others who came up short, and every case was carefully verified. The program spread across the state, and soon, it became a model for other stations to follow. 5 years later, Jack now oversees all of Morrison's stations in the eastern part of the state. The Pay It Forward program has helped thousands of families, and the company's profits are higher than ever. Emily, who now runs the company, often says that 6 months of living like ordinary people taught her more about business than 15 years in the corporate world. Jack keeps a framed receipt from that $10 gas purchase next to a picture of him and his mom, who no longer has to work 2 jobs. He often shares his story with new employees, teaching them that the smallest acts of kindness can have the biggest impact. As for Mr. Phillips, he now works at a car wash across town, giving out free air fresheners to customers who seem to be having a rough day. Maybe, just maybe, he learned something too. Jack still works the occasional night shift, just to stay connected with his customers. "My mom always said to help others when you can," he tells them. Turns out she was right about everything.